Welcome to episode 240 of the Necronoma.com.
You know what's really scary? Book bans. Long a tool of authoritarians, book bans are a direct threat to our freedom to read. That's why Library Foundation SD, Brooklyn Public Library, and other partners across the country have launched Books Unbanned to fight this evil. This campaign makes frequently banned or challenged books available through a digital catalog to young people across the U.S., including states with increasing book bans. Like your local library, it's completely free to sign up. Want to learn more, including how you can help increase access to the books we love? Visit libraryfoundationsd.org.
Fright Rags has been bringing you the best in horror apparel and accessories since 2003, offering a wide range of products for your favorite creature features, slasher flicks, and cult classics. Officially licensed collections include titles like John Carpenter's The Thing, The Evil Dead, Creepshow, Jaws, the Halloween franchise, and so many more. Head on over to fright-rags.com. Make sure to sign up for their SMS and email newsletter to never miss a drop. Listeners get 10% off when they use the code NECRO10, all caps, at checkout. I am James Sabata, horror author, screenwriter, co-host of the podcast you're listening to right now, and I feel like I'm living in an endless loop, so it's very possible I am stuck in this movie. My co-host is not here today because he thought he could take a 2-week break and go celebrate getting his doctorate. Some people, am I right?
Right.
Shouldn't I come first in his life? But I guess not.
Always.
Gosh. So instead, I have two amazing guests today. Bridget D is here, and Laurel Hightower joins us once again. Welcome to the show, both of you.
Thanks for having us. Yeah.
Sure. All right. So who wants to go first and tell our listeners a bit about yourself?
I will default to Laurel. Go ahead, Laurel.
Damn it. I was going to default to you. But you're the guest. So I'm Laurel Hightower. I write horror. Much of it is quite depressing. I apologize for that. Other than that, I am a whiskey drinking, F-bomb dropping mom of the coolest kid.
That's pretty true.
That's awesome.
Your kid is awesome.
He is awesome.
You're all right too.
Yeah, whatever. I just donated most of the DNA. I assume there's some other DNA in there, but it's mostly me.
I think you get an executive producer credit for that. So
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, he's the first time we took him to fly, I was a little bit worried because, they don't have an ID. And I'm like, is someone going to think this kid isn't mine? And then I just looked at him. I was like, no, just kidding. All I have to do is hold him up next to myself. This is his ID.
That's how I feel with my 3 oldest ones. Yeah.
Yeah. Yes.
All right,
Amazing.
Bridget, what about you?
All right. Yeah, I'm Bridget Brave. I do not write sad horror. I write weird horror, I guess. Sometimes funny horror. Yeah, I'm from all over the country. I've lived everywhere, but now I'm back in the Midwest and very happy about it.
Good. Nice. Do you have any books coming out this week?
I somehow have 4 anthologies dropping this week. So
Wow.
yeah, it's and then nothing again until October. So yeah, I don't know how. It's probably because StokerCon is coming up, so everybody wanted to get it out then. But yeah, 4 anthologies is a lot.
So what are they?
So I have Shadows in the Stacks, which
Never
you might have heard of. Yeah, I didn't know if you had seen anything online about it or not. I also have. Let's see, Welcome to Your Body, which is a body horror anthology.
It's so good.
I'm very proud of that one. I have this book of 100 prompts, which is technically already out, but the copies are coming out the week of StokerCon. So that's I just realized I'm recording this ahead of time. You can edit this if you want to. Yeah.
No. They know I don't do that. No, I'm just kidding. No, we've been recording so much ahead that we literally have been making jokes like, hey, we said this in April, it was relevant. So you're fine. Continue.
And then Fragile, which was a anthology of prompts. It's the same prompt for every author. Basically, there's a box and you are helping move and the box makes a sound. So you open it to see what's inside. And then we each did a random roll to see who got what. And I might have gotten Gwyneth Paltrow's head in the box. So
that's a good place for it. So
yeah.
I saw a movie about that. So Laurel, do I take it that you've read the body horror anthology?
I have. I read it to give it a blurb and it was fucking fantastic.
Nice. What did you like most about it? I'm pushing books here.
I feel like it was curated super well. There was a whole lot of like variety, which is not always the case, with anthologies. There was huge variety in like, the body parts, and I liked how it was grouped by like sections of the body. And I feel like all the authors brought their A game. Like no story was like surface level. There was nothing that was like, wow, this is, just a certain take on a trope. It was all just inventive and very like, and I keep saying this every time I mention this book, but fucking Sacha Brown, rude, writing a story about teeth that like hurt my feelings multiple times. I was like, hey, I was here for some body horror, not your fucking truth bombs.
Yeah.
But
nice.
Yeah, but it's excellent. And of course, Bridget's story like has lived rent free in my head since I heard you read it last year. I keep thinking about that. Anytime someone talks about their sinuses, I'm like, oh God.
Oh yeah.
You're welcome. Yeah.
I still have the little drill that Bridget was holding while reading that story. So it's literally about 2 feet from me right now. And then of course you're both in Shadows in the Stacks, the charity anthology from Shortwave that goes with Spirited Giving, which is also the week this episode comes out, which means as you're listening to this, I am having a massive panic attack right now. But
wait, how's that different from another day though? Really?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, good point. People can see me. That's the main difference. So Shadows in the Stacks, obviously edited by me, Vincent Cava, and Jared Sage, as I've mentioned many times on this show already. Shortwave is publishing it. Laurel wrote the foreword and just utterly fantastic. Really summed up the book in a beautiful way. And anyway, thank you for doing that, Laurel. And
My
then
pleasure.
I'm going to skip Bridget for a second because we're coming back to hers. My short story, Doom Scroll, is basically what would happen if Logan Paul went to an Amish colony. That's the best way I can put it. And it is available on Mr. Creepypasta's channel if you want to go have somebody else read it to you. It's only got like 22,000 downloads as I record this. So, I mean, everyone's read it but you. What are you waiting for? All right, Bridget, tell me about your story in Shadows, because I love your story, especially the title. What's the title of the story?
Oh my gosh, I have to open it because I have to read it. You should have prepped me for this.
I'm so sorry.
Wow.
We can.
It's the short version is called Burlesque because James got mad that he couldn't tweet the full version. So apparently, it takes up too much space.
That is 100% true.
Yes. So the full title is Burlesque Albanqua proudly presents Parsippany Phoenix and the Dance of the Seven Veils, sponsored by Frank Crown Buick.
Boom. Amazing title.
That is amazing. Have we figured out an acronym for that yet?
We have not. But yeah, do you want to give people a quick rundown of the story?
Sure. So this is essentially what happens in just as some background about me, all of my stories seem to take place in a weird small town. I wonder where I'm from. But yes, this is about a weird small town that has an annual burlesque festival. And this year they have invited a special guest who is going to reveal more than herself.
Oh,
yes.
Indeed. It's a fantastic story and a wonderful addition. All right, let's move into the movie. I'll quit pushing our book for now. So Bridget, you chose The Endless. What is it about this movie that you were like, this is the one we have to talk about?
So I'm one of those film hipsters that's always like, oh, I like this film you've never heard of. And then when I talk about The Endless, horror people are always like, oh, I love that movie. So this is ruining all my hipster cred. But this is one I actually saw. My first Benson and Moorhead movie was Spring. And I enjoyed it so much that I was like, well, I want to see the rest. And then I discovered that they have this trilogy. And I am a sucker for a continuing story. So I watched The Endless first, mainly because that was the one I could find. And then I went back and watched Resolution and Synchronicity. And then Something in the Dirt, I will say, is tangentially related to it, even though it's not technically part of the trilogy. So I wanted to talk about this one because it's got such a great horror element to it. I would even argue that it is Lovecraftian horror.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, they even straight mentioned Lovecraft at one point.
Yeah. But you do not want to say that to certain film nerds because they will say, not really. So
do it for fun, though.
Yeah, that's why I do it.
Who's going to argue with you about that is just going to be lots of fun in that conversation.
I love how whenever anyone makes a comment like that, my first reaction is, men, you're talking about men.
Yeah.
I bet you'd choose the bear too, James. Gaw.
I would. Gosh.
But it's a Lovecraftian bear. So
it is.
Yes.
There's another term for bear as well, and I would choose them too, but that's a conversation for another day. But no, so what you just said about horror authors are always like, oh yeah, I love that movie. So I'm telling Laurel how Dawn can't do this episode, and I was like, no, I got to find somebody who's seen The Endless, and she goes, oh, I love that movie.
Yeah, see, everybody.
And that's why she's here today. So, I thought that was hilarious that you just said that. All right.
I was just going to say, I also love time loop movies. Like that is, you've got your classic Groundhog Day. Happy Death Day is one of my favorites.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm a sucker for a good time loop, and I think this one does it exceptionally well.
Yes. Very inventively.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and I mean, obviously we're going to get into all this, but it does it in a really cool way where there's multiple time loops going on at once. And I have rarely, if ever, seen that before. And I thought that was such a cool thing. And how if you're not stuck in them, you can move between them. But once you are, then you can't go past your walls. And I don't know, just the whole, like, usually when you see this, it's the same repeat over and over again, like Groundhog's Day, which I adore, but it can get old. And and I loved that, there's the guy in the tent with the 2-second loop.
Oh,
and
God,
there's
it's
just terrifying. Yeah.
That's like the worst one by far. And on that tangent for a second on my tangent here, but I'm turning into Dawn. No, I'm just kidding. But that symbolized hell to me. Like the shorter that your loop would be, the further into hell you are. And that guy just, holy shit. Yeah. His look, everything about him. And then he's still cognizant enough to warn Aaron to get the hell out of there. That's like a whole extra level of hell on top of what you're living with.
Being aware.
You can still be aware of everything around you. Yeah. Holy shit.
And his face was so you could see this moment where he was like, no, don't do it. And then he's like, oh, I'm compelled to do it. And that was so torturous too. Like you could see that he just wanted to not, and then he would just have to give into it. And that's just, that was a really good touch.
Yeah, that was actually that night we went to bed and we're just laying there in the dark. And my husband said, the guy in the tent, though. It's like, the guy in the tent.
Yeah. 100%. Holy fucking shit. Well, you have a guy setting himself on fire, not nearly as scary as the guy in the tent.
Mm-hmm.
You have a guy shooting himself, hanging himself, not nearly as scary. You have this entire community going through what they're going through. None of that is nearly as scary as this fucking dude in the tent. And putting that much horror into such a short span, that's just amazing fucking writing to me.
Absolutely.
I'm in love.
Also, I would argue that the guy, the guy that's shooting himself and hanging himself, that was actually the most comedic moment for me. That guy ruled. Mm-hmm. He's just like, I loved that guy.
He was my favorite. You gotta suck my dick. I'm just kidding. You're spending your time making jokes. I love it.
And just really leaning into it too.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, he's my favorite character in the whole movie by far. And even his repeat, where he constantly throws open the door, that's scary, but it's nothing like the tent guy. Holy shit.
It's more startling. And then it's a little bit disturbing when he's hanging.
Mm-hmm.
but then it's like he's sort of, again, it's like the comedic element of he's like, yeah, bust through, whatever. Yeah, no, you'll get used to it. Staring at your own dead body, it's fine.
He's fantastic.
Yeah, I love it. I love that he's just, not only has he just accepted it, but he's like at the point where it's like it's a bit he can do, which is what I hope would happen to me if I were stuck in the stage. But
he had to be so excited to get an audience.
Yeah,
I
when
know.
somebody shows up, absolutely.
He'd probably thought of that dick joke like ages ago. I was like just waiting for somebody. Just bring this on.
I need them to get me a gun, but they're going to say no. What can I offer them first so they accept the gun offer? See, that's just good thinking. I wonder how long he's been working on that.
Oh, endlessly.
Man. Right? Holy crap. But yeah, so aside from just the time loops and stuff, Bridget, where do you want to take this? You're in charge because you're the official guest. Haha, Laurel. No, just kidding.
This is so much pressure. Well, I would say that I really wanted to talk about how this was really about escaping generational trauma, because this
Beautiful.
entire movie is, they're two brothers that have escaped this cult upbringing. Because I'm from the weird Midwest, I know people who have escaped the cult upbringing and, trying to avoid those same patterns, trying to break the cycle, which is like the overall theme. And also, I want to discuss whether or not you two think they made it out of the loop at the end.
Sweet. Cool.
There's a chance they didn't?
There's a chance they didn't.
What?
Yeah.
I thought it was a happy ending. Damn.
It might be, but I've seen a lot of theories. I mean, one of my favorite theories is that just like the comedic relief we discussed earlier can see his own dead body, there might be a version of them that just crashes.
Ooh.
Well, and they were pulled out of that burning car as children by Hal.
Which is also where I thought it would go. I mean, I don't know if anyone else felt that way, but I was like, when we were getting towards the end of the movie, I was like, oh, they're going to have to pull themselves out of that burning car, aren't they? That's going to be where this resets.
Well, they pulled themselves out of the burning car of life. So,
yes.
In a way, you were right.
So I did not feel that way the first time, but then I rewatched it today because I watched this a month and a half ago when we were originally going to try to record it, and I was like, oh, it's been too long, I better rewatch it. And today I was like, man, you have the crash right there. I wish they would have done this, and then the group would have pulled them out of the burning car and pulled them back to the time loop. I would have loved that, and so no, I didn't think about it the first time, but this time I thought that would be a cool touch.
The irritating thing about me is that I always figure out how a movie is going to end. And Sean has gotten to the point, my husband, where he makes me write it down now instead of saying anything. And then I have to reveal it at the end like it's a magic trick. So
nice.
That's a good way to do it.
Yeah. So I was wrong this time, but yeah.
I had to do that with Jordan Peele's Us because I had spent so much time thinking about it. I had all these theories before we went to see it. And I was like, the person I'm going with isn't like that. So I have to just write it all down and not say anything so I can get it out of me.
Yes. Well, and sometimes it's irritating because I will write down an ending and then we get to the end of the movie and he's like, oh, that's better. Yours is better. And I'm like, well, not the case in The Endless, but yeah, that was, I've had a few others where I thought it was going in one direction. I was totally wrong. I will say my most interesting was Barbarian because I had to edit it about 400 times because I had no idea where that movie was going.
I don't think I knew where it was going when we were at the end. It was
no.
I still haven't seen that one. I know it's a horror. I just keep thinking it's like some Russell Crowe wearing like a, whatever. Like what was it, the 300 or something like that?
Yeah.
I keep thinking it's like that, and it's like, wait, no, different.
It's so much weirder than that. So.
Oh yeah. And then when you watch it, check out our episode on Barbarian. But yeah, no, I have always been the person who does that. The first time my friends made me watch Saw, I was like, yeah, well, we never saw him die. And they were like, what the fuck, man? And they were so pissed off at me. And then Saw became one of my favorite franchises ever. But it's been an ongoing thing in my life. But now I'm also at the point, especially with this show, where I read spoilers for everything, because when I'm trying to break down analysis or that kind of stuff, I need to know where it's going. I don't have time to watch a movie 3 or 4 times before we do an episode, and so that's kind of gone away in that I already know where it's actually going. But I do find I'm constantly trying to rewrite endings of movies. So
I get that. I absolutely get that.
let me just throw out there for anyone who loves Christmas rom-coms that Happiest Season will drive me crazy forever because their ending did not go correctly, and I would love to rewrite it for them. All right. So but no, you brought up the generational trauma. Or do you want to still keep talking about the end? We can keep talking about.
Oh no, we can talk about the generational trauma as well. And I think that why this one impacted me so hard is because I've seen every Benson and Moorhead film I could get my hands on, and they are so good at writing just like relatable dudes. I empathize and I relate to every their main characters so hard because they don't make dumb decisions. They are completely relatable, and those guys. Like you're like, oh, I would hang out with those guys. This is actually terrifying because this could happen to someone I know.
Oh, absolutely.
So yeah, the generational trauma. Oh, sorry.
Oh, no. Go ahead.
I was just going to discuss the generational trauma thing because I thought that the UFO cult was such an interesting part of it. Because, when you're getting into that, I was like, oh, it's not actually a UFO cult. And then stuff starts getting really weird. You're like, oh, wait, maybe there are actually UFOs in here. Because it's the fear of, in relating to generational trauma, is this something that my family actually feels like they are protecting me from or saving me for, or, whatever the motivation is for doing the weird shit they're doing, or is it just in their heads? And then I think that having a literal UFO cult was kind of like the perfect emphasis on that kind of issue.
Yeah. And I really liked how they did the cult too, though, because it was very disarming.
Mm-hmm.
There's this huge tension that you feel because, in general, it's just like, no, cults are bad. Why are you going back there? And the more like congenial they are, the more welcoming and like easygoing, the more tense you get. I did anyways, because I'm with the older brother, like the shoe's going to drop and it's going to hit so hard.
Well, they went back because the hot girl told them to. Well,
yeah, obviously.
It's the same reason the dudes send the Facebook message. It's that hot girl from your past.
Then
it goes to those other messages folder,
right?
And you find it 3 years later, and you're like, "Why are you still talking to me?"
Little do you know that girl's just going to trap you in a loop. So,
and every message on there is hello, fine, bitch, whatever. Yeah. Like,
yes.
Yeah. I've read my wife's messages she gets, so I'm aware. But no, I just want to really quickly say I don't know how any woman has DMs or chats or anything. I would never look at that shit again. Holy fuck. I feel terrible for everyone involved. But the generational trauma, I think also it doesn't even have to be the cult level. Like it's what I feel when I go back to small town Nebraska. But and I don't even mean it rudely to them because I don't mean that they're in a cult. I don't mean that like there's anything dangerous there per se. But like nobody leaves. Like they literally have their own little boundaries, like these time loops do, right? And they stay in the town and they're there forever. And everyone knows each other and knows everything about each other. And I watched this. And that's exactly what I felt. It's like going back home where I don't fit in anymore. But like, I also feel like nothing's changed and almost in a creepy way, even though I'm sure everybody's fine. You know what I mean? And so, and maybe I'm just saying they're fine because I have to go back at some point and I don't want them ready to kill me. But I don't know. Like it was that same kind of thing. Like it doesn't even have to be a cult. It's just that community feeling of I don't fit in, but everything's creepy to me just because I'm not from here as well.
But also it's, it's not even for me. I have a very small town that I'm from, but it's that I don't fit in there, but also realizing how much you never fit in there. And also, thinking about how much more you don't fit in, or the fear of going back and discovering, oh, maybe this is where I belonged all along. Like I always have that moment, like, am I going to have the Hallmark movie thing where I went home one summer and fell in love with a local lumberjack and then ended up in my small town again,
There's
Lumberjack made that
inoculations
great.
against that.
Yes.
A vaccine you can take before you go home.
Is it a horse tranquilizer or like a normal vaccine?
Little of both. The horse tranquilizer part's for the guy. He sleeps through your visit. Crisis averted.
Oh my God.
Follow me for more tips like roofing guys you don't want to spend time with.
We have a podcast spinoff now. We'll call it just Roofie 'em, girl.
I'd listen to that. That'll be your first review. I listen to this every night before I fall asleep.
Works like a charm.
What about you, Laurel? Do you have those feelings about places that you've been in the past and you go back, or?
See, I'm living in the town that I grew up in. So for me, it was a little bit backwards from that. Like I've lived in California for a while, lived in Tennessee. And then like I don't like to feel like I'm moving backwards. So like I was reluctant to move home, but when I got back, it just felt exactly like where I should be. But it's also like, it's not like a small town. There's probably like 350,000 people here.
Yeah.
So it's not like a conglomeration of personality type, So I have absolutely nothing to add to this conversation, basically.
No, and I think you brought up a great point, because the town I grew up in at the time was about 220,000. But what I'm talking about is like when I would go to the small towns where my grandpa's house was, or things like that, right? So when I go visit uncles and aunts or whatever, or just people I knew growing up, like I just always have that weird feeling. Sorry, Bridget, didn't mean to cut you off. What do you got?
I know. I thought it was a great counterpoint to it that, sometimes you get out and you spend some time away, and then it's easier to deal with when you come back.
Yeah. Cause it's interesting. I know that that's probably true of a whole lot of towns that people, go see things and then they come back to, but mine in particular really seems like that a lot of people who move away from it are not happy until they move back. And I don't know what that's about. Like, it's not like, like we're Southern, but we're not. So like we're Southern enough to basically be fairly like welcoming and polite, but much less bigotry in this town. And so I don't know. I feel like there's not anything that I necessarily feel the need to fight against. You know what I mean? And yeah, I mean, that's a good point, James. Like the smaller towns, that are surrounding where you have family that come from, but we're just so removed from most of our family. It was more like, my mom's family was in Paris, Kentucky for a while. And like, we would occasionally go visit like their gravestones, but maybe that's it. Like everyone's dead. So maybe I am inoculated against this.
It's also, it's all, there's a lot about my hometown I can't return to because I'm from a literal horror movie. The ground is poison. They were dumping benzene into
oh my God.
the groundwater for years. Yeah, there's a great class action lawsuit now. But yeah, so like that was part of it. It was very small. There were like less than 1,100 people there. The joke I used to make to my mom is I'm like, I have to get out of here because eventually there's going to be one last name. And I can reasonably guess which one is going to be. But yeah. So it was just like there were a lot of factors there that were like that would lead to me not going back to that area. But at the same time, I completely agree with you that perspective is so important because like moving around the country really taught me. I'm like, well, every place is just the same. You might as well just find one with people you can deal with,
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, and good tacos, because not every place has great tacos. So.
That's for sure.
This is so true.
Yeah.
And that is the thing about Kentucky. Like the smaller towns too, like there's so few places I could live because so many of them are so limited on like their food types. And I'm like, no, I need more.
Yeah. Agreed.
Well, Laurel, as an outsider, I love your city, and I go out of my way to go to your city anytime I'm at a con that's 90 minutes away. So yeah, I love your city, and I totally see why you moved back. I have considered moving there myself. As you know, I try to move every month, and my wife keeps shooting it down. But one day I'll move somewhere. So
I have faith. I have faith that it will happen. And if you come here, you've got built-in family.
There you go.
So, just saying, it's a thing.
And Cocaine Bear.
Always the most important part.
I couldn't resist. All right, what else you got, Bridget?
All right, so we've discussed. Well, I mean, where would you like me to take this? Do you want me to discuss overall themes in the film? Would you like me to?
You do whatever you want.
Just like fangirl over Benson and Moorhead for a while. Because the last time I excitedly tweeted about that, one of them followed me. So
what?
Yeah, I know. I was so excited. Justin.
All right, then we got to get Aaron to follow you next. That's our new goal.
That's going to be the whole big thing. And this is one of those. Okay, so full disclosure, I live in a state where it's legal. I do smoke a lot of weed, and we watch a lot of horror movies while high. And this was one where I was like, no, wait, I want to watch this again tomorrow when I'm not messed up to see if it still blows me away the same way. And it did. It's not true of every movie. And I do get into arguments with people who love these trilogies because everyone has a different favorite. And then I'll have people that are like, oh, Spring's a better movie. I'm like, Spring's not part of this trilogy and not part of this conversation. So I don't want to discuss that at all. But I actually believe that the correct way to watch it is to watch The Endless first and then go back and watch Resolution, because I think Resolution had more impact on me after seeing The Endless. And I don't know, honestly, I don't know if I would have enjoyed Resolution the same way if I had watched it first. And it was just because I consumed it. It was one of those Shudder movies that was up, and I said, okay, great, I'll watch it. And then I was like, okay, now I have to buy the other one so I can watch the rest of this trilogy. But I think that understanding the background before you go into Resolution and seeing how some of those time loops start just adds a whole different dimension to it. Nice. I don't know. Did you watch the other films?
I have not.
I haven't either, but I
would highly recommend going and watching Resolution. I think Synchrocity, it didn't feel as connected to me as the other two films did. I still enjoyed it on its own merits, but I think to me, that felt like more of a standalone. And again, I would say that There's Something in the Dirt felt way more connected to it.
So Spring is actually not part of that trilogy?
It is not.
Wow. I'd always thought it was. Okay. I'm not seen that one either.
It feels like it's in that same family. I would say it's adjacent to.
Cool.
So yeah, that's interesting to me because like when I was on Reddit looking stuff up, like a lot of them consider Spring part of the trilogy and don't mention Synchrocity. So that's so strange. I wonder how that came about. Like, is there no official, like these are together, or is it like, I
think that there's probably a Benson and Moorhead universe, and I think that those films exist in the same universe, but I don't believe that there was anything that was actually tying them together.
All right. Interesting.
They're welcome to come on the show and argue if I'm wrong on that one.
Bridget offers an open invitation.
Yes. You can come on our new Just Roofium Girl. We'll invite you.
We can score things by roofies or like milligrams of dosage.
And also, if they're willing to come on the show, I would like to discuss my idea for a larger Shitty Carl universe. Because I think the Shitty Carl cinematic universe is really...
Yeah.
The world's hungry for it.
I'd like to know Carl's whole backstory before he got there too. So
I would love like a Forrest Gump style Shitty Carl series that's just like all of the crazy adventures he got into that brought him here.
Things he's done while he's been waiting.
I would watch that.
Oh my God.
So Shitty Carl's also mentioned in Spring.
Is he referred to as Shitty Carl?
I believe so.
Nice.
There's a legacy.
Whenever anybody says Shitty Carl, I picture the guy in Aqua Teen Hunger Force, also named Carl. And I gotta tell you, I don't think that these have to be mutually exclusive. I
You're
feel
right.
like Shitty Carl would share a lot of the same backstory as Carl in Aqua Teen Hunger Force.
Just needs a stained tank top and some sweatpants.
I think it would work. And I mean, I think that this is actually the crossover the world is looking for. If Aqua Teen is also related to the Benson and Moorhead universe, I will just lose my mind.
How could it not be?
I mean, it should be actually Meatball.
Meatwad.
Meatwad, thank you.
Yeah.
Meatwad.
Been a while.
How dare you?
Go back. It's all streaming now.
Oh my gosh.
What if Shitty Carl is actually the catalyst? Like, he's just escaping and like just his shittiness causes these time loops.
That's kind of
I've known
amazing.
people like that. It's almost impressive.
You're so shitty, you caused this.
Your vortex of assholeness just like dragged everyone else inside it. So I definitely, Bridget, I think you made a really good point about the escaping the generational cycle. I was also interested in, to me, it was very suggestive of organized religion.
Yes.
In the same way, because like they really took it to the level of like, especially when they kept showing, whatever you want to call it, the physical media it sort of created out of what it observed. And like, especially at the end when you're seeing its point of view every time, like people thought they were alone or were like, in these kind of nice situations talking to each other. And the actual concept of some greater creature or whatever constantly observing you is creepy as fuck.
Oh yeah.
Right. And because it's something otherworldly, do we understand its motivation at all? Like, does it even recognize that we are suffering?
Well, and why is it doing things that actively seem to increase it? Like,
yeah,
I really liked the recurrence, that both Shitty Carl and Mike said about like, don't let it make the decision for you. Like, I would rather go out on my own terms than let that fucker do it. And that's so interesting to me. Especially when compared with essentially the cults, like very accepting and sort of like almost sort of a symbiotic relationship with it. There just doesn't seem to be that same level of like, this thing is, I don't know. I'm not expressing myself well, but it definitely does seem like the divide between people who are all cheerfully about organized religion and like incorporate the idea of like God and a deity and everything that they do versus like, no, I know it's real. I know it's big. I know it's here. I know it's capable of a lot. And I still told it to go fuck itself.
right.
Mm-hmm.
And I mean, honestly, if you're looking at the loops as almost rituals, as ritualistic, then the ritual only brings suffering.
Yeah.
You gotta break out of that. I did see so when I was, I rewatched this recently and then I read one of my favorite, Reddit entries about it, discussing that, and I apologize, I am a reader, so I often do not know how things are pronounced because I read it first. I think it's
story of my life.
It's Yog Sothoth, the great old one from Lovecraft.
Yeah.
Who is
no idea.
the time being. It's like he sees everything in the past, present, and future at all times. And so because they believe that he is like I think it's in the Dunwich Horror where they're talking about the past, present, and future, how that represents the gate and how you can move through the gate. And I thought about that a lot with the guy in the tent. Is he trying to get through the gate? Is that why he just keeps throwing himself at it? Because not trying to continue forward causes him worse pain at this point.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's an interesting way to look at it. Yeah, because initially he had the same sort of look in his eye when you see somebody with like severe OCD, manifesting it as like that repetitive sort of thing, like and they want to get away from it, and it's like this compulsion that they simply can't deny because it's more uncomfortable to not do it, despite how I don't know how despairing it is to have to continue to do it.
Well, and that being in the Lovecraftian universe, that's something that like feeds on knowledge. And it's something that requires it forever. So it becomes like this eternal task you have to commit. And there are two things that you can buy favor from it with, and that is eternal servitude or human sacrifice, which I think we're seeing both. Tent Guy, Shitty Carl, they're just endlessly, they're serving this being and sacrificing themselves over and over and over again.
Oh man, I like that.
I would love to know. It's so interesting how many unanswered questions there are, because this feels like this huge universe that we're only seeing snippets of, the same snippets that Justin and Aaron see. But I'm so interested in the place that had the note on it that was like, I've gone to find my compatriots, help yourself to my garden while I'm gone. And it's like Byron and then whatever, date and month and day, and then question marks for the year. Who's that guy?
That was pretty great.
It was. Yeah. And I love those sort of just this open universe that you're only getting a small view of.
I think this would actually make a really cool video game idea. Where you're traveling different loops, and if you get stuck in one, then you're stuck and, fucked for the game.
There is a game.
Really?
There.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember what it's called. It
clearly doesn't star Mario because I would have played it.
Is it it has to do with a radio and a girl who's lost her brother, and she's committing this to the same loop over and over again. And it's amazing because the first time, she doesn't really comment on it, but it's a replayable game. And the second time you go into it, she's like, wait a minute, we've discussed all this before. And I was like, oh, she is aware that this game has happened before. Yeah.
Nice.
I have to remember the name of it. I will find it. But yeah, that's and clearly that's something that I obsess with. I love time loops. So that game really spoke to me as well. And Vincent and Moorhead, if you want to start a game, I do game writing. But we could do maybe the Shitty Carl universe game where
yes,
we send him on a Big Trouble in Little China type adventure. But yeah,
man. Talking about Reddit theories, my favorite theory I read was that the more obedient you are, the more time you get. And so
guy in the tent must suck.
Yeah, because he's actively fighting it. So he has the least amount of time. And then Shitty Carl is sort of fighting it. He's finding ways out and killing himself and being like, fuck you, telling people to suck his dick, because I just keep coming back to that. and just so he has more time, but excuse me, but not as much time as everyone else has. And then you have the two friends, Mike and the guy who's tied up, Chris. There we go. They have, I think they have a week, something like that. And even though he's a little fighty, he's setting it on fire and going, fuck you, that's why, but he's not actively fighting it the whole time, so he gets more time. And then you have the community who is actively being not necessarily even obedient, but they're interacting with it, playing with it, maybe worshiping it, maybe not, just kind of not fighting it and embracing it, and they get 10 full years. And I thought that was such a cool theory, that it's based on how much you fight back.
And building on that theory, do you think that's why certain people are more aware of the loop than others? Because they point out, when we are in the cabin, I don't want to call it the detox den, in there. And his friend is always stop saying that. And I'm like, does he know that this is a loop? Because he doesn't seem as aware that it's a loop. And why isn't he remembering? Is his part of the loop coming in and being completely new to this scenario over and over again, which is horrifying in its own way, because that's just the loss of memory as well.
Well, they both referenced, I thought, the greeting and how it goes. And if I have to hear you say, how the hell are you, man, one more time, and then the other guy's like, oh, what about you with your fucking slicked back gel hair? But it's interesting because when you see the beginning of their loop again, it doesn't seem like they're aware that it's a repetition.
Right. So, where's that inconsistency coming from? And I refuse to believe that was just oops, we screwed that up, because of how meticulous they are with detail.
Yeah, that seems intentional.
And it could work like deja vu, where you start to feel it And then you're like, wait, what the fuck? And then, I don't know, maybe you're both saying the same things and you're looking at each other like, what's happening, you know?
Well, I know we've had the conversation before.
Yeah.
But is it denial, or is it just life, in that same trapped cycle where it all feels familiar, but is it actually familiar, or is it just that this is the pattern?
I feel like they must have some realization, because there'd be no reason to say, fuck you, when he lights the place on fire if he didn't. So like he has to get to that point, right?
But is that the point where he remembers fully?
Maybe.
Like, is there a triggering moment in there that like clicks it back into place? And then that also, puts in during the time before you can really remember, do you have more free will or less free will?
Interesting.
This is such a good one to discuss, because it's like, I don't know. I feel like bouncing the theories off of each other is good.
Oh, yeah.
I love all the theories. It's crazy.
It's a fascinating movie. And I also, just on a personal standpoint, I love it because I think this really shows that you don't need like a huge budget with huge names to make a compelling horror movie.
Oh, yeah. I actually often come back to, when they made Star Wars, like nobody knew who any of these people were, right? And then it was famous for being what it was instead. And I come back to that with horror a lot, because sometimes I just get overly distracted by who the big name in the movie is. And I know sometimes it's been used for fun, like putting Drew Barrymore in Scream and killing her right away or things like that. But like, there's just times where I'm like, if I don't like an actor already, then like I come into any movie biased, right? And I'm just like, I wish this was somebody else, so I didn't have that. But also, I like that feeling that anybody could die at any given time, or just that, like, I don't know. There's just something about it where big names bring me out of it, except the exception, going back to Barbarian, Justin Long should be in everything and constantly die horrible deaths like he does in so many horror movies.
Justin Long is my new Scream Queen. I love him so much.
Tusk is like my favorite thing because of Justin Long. And I legitimately, if I ever get to run a con or I have say on who the celebrity is, Justin Long is my number one draft pick, because I think those panels would be fucking amazing.
Did you see the like Christmas slasher he was in though?
No.
What was that?
I have not seen that either.
It was weird. Hang on. Don't wait on me. I'm going to look it up though.
I just love that there's so much stuff that he's in where he just purposely plays the biggest piece of shit of all time, so you can't wait till he dies.
Dude,
like,
and
I think
this is my theory. I think Justin Long is probably like the greatest dude that might exist, because he plays a shitty guy so well, which means he can recognize it.
Right?
It's a wonderful knife.
Yeah.
It's a wonderful knife.
I love that title. That's incredible.
Yeah. It's good. I liked it.
Nice. I was going to watch it and didn't get around to it. I forgot all about it till you brought it up now.
So put it on your list now.
Maybe I will. Maybe I won't. No, I'm just kidding.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, he's my exception. But for the most part, whenever there's a bigger name in it, I'm just instantly like I wish you were someone else. There's something about horror itself, because I don't have this with like other types of movies usually, but horror itself, I want like a bunch of people I don't know. I don't know why.
Well, I think
like
it makes
strange when it comes to horror.
Yes.
Maybe.
Okay.
Well, that's when you have to sit on the actor beforehand so that they're numb.
So they go numb.
Yeah. But no, there was my roommates in college made me watch the Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Next Generation with like Matthew McConaughey and everything.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, no, I know these people too well, and I can tell they're acting, and it's ruining it for me. Like I'm not enjoying it all that much.
Yeah, that's the thing, is like that person is so famous that they're that person.
Right.
And I mean, you have some that avoid that. Like I would say Lance Henriksen.
Oh yeah, completely. But like Adam Driver, I have a really rough time taking seriously because I watched Girls. So he is that actor. He's that character from Girls who just happened to book Kylo Ren. And like, that's how I feel about it when I see it. And I mean, it doesn't necessarily ruin it for me. It actually makes it kind of hilarious, but yeah, that's always present.
I have one more exception, but in a weirder way, and it's Jenna Ortega. And Jenna Ortega is now always Jenna Ortega to me, but I still love her being Jenna Ortega in every movie that she's in.
Yes.
So there we
But
go.
you can just tell the movie is like this movie called for Jenna Ortega. It's like Mia Goth. Like Mia Goth is Mia Goth, and that's fine because sometimes the role just calls for a little Mia Goth.
Well, Raul Julia was like that too.
Oh, I love him.
It's like he was Gomez, but he was also what's his face in Mortal Kombat or Street Fighter or something. Everything he did, he was Raul Julia, but it was like Raul Julia in this role.
Do you know what I love him in is Moon Over Parador.
I haven't seen that.
Oh my gosh, it's this old movie my dad loved. It's Richard Dreyfuss plays a somebody who does impressions of like this Southern American dictator, and South American dictator, and the guy has a stroke and he ends up being brought into. It's basically Dave, but it was done a little bit earlier.
Nice.
So yeah, it's a fascinating, hilarious movie, and Raul Julia is just fantastic in it.
I'm also
looking
just
at the
excited.
cover on it now. Like that is a weird look for Richard Dreyfuss. Like I'm not.
Oh, it's so weird.
Now I got to pull up the cover.
See,
I feel so
we're
left out.
enriching lives here with this. Oh, I wanted to go back though to the big names. I will never forgive Lost.
Oh yeah,
because Lost originally was supposed to kill Jack in the first episode. He was, and that was their whole idea, was that to show you no one was safe. And then they chickened out on it the last minute and killed the pilot instead. That was how Jack was originally. He was supposed to like give this big emotional speech about how they were going to save everybody and they had to work together, and then he was going to die by the smoke monster. And
like Samuel L. Jackson in Deep Blue Sea.
Yes, which
hell
is one of my favorite scenes. And the fact that they chickened out on that makes me so angry.
One of my favorite parts of that show was honestly like whatever part. It was really early on, and like it's Jack and whoever was it, Kate, whatever. Like Kate, some of the the really attractive like popular ones, and she's like, oh, ask Jack about his tattoo, and Charlie's like, oh, good, we already have in jokes, aren't we cute? And I was like, yes,
absolutely. I was working for a big fancy law firm at the time, and I had a friend that or a coworker who came in and said, oh, someone told me you watched Lost, so who do you think Kate's going to choose? And I was like, oh, you're the one. You're the one that they're writing that entire stupid plot nobody cares about for.
Oh no, like my husband still laughs over, like, I don't know if you guys have watched NCIS, and it's fine if people enjoy that, like that's fine, but like it's just such a, I don't know, like he ran into somebody at the store and they were talking about NCIS and they were like, yeah, Tony and Ziva really had something special. And yeah, like we look at that like, you're the person. Okay.
Like, who are you? Like, what is going on in your life that is your main concern?
I mean, I like romance, but I'm also like,
it was not the point of Lost. The most important point of Lost was how did they keep cutting bangs? Because in season 2, suddenly all the women had bangs, and I'm like, where are these scissors? Where are you cutting bangs?
Oh man.
Well, who's mowing the lawn during The Walking Dead? You know,
right?
Questions we'll never get answers to.
I gotta know, because you're talking Lost, did you two like or hate the finale? I don't need an essay. Just how'd you feel about the finale? Because my wife views this as the greatest atrocity that was ever committed against her. And I just want to know if that's a normal feeling for people that watched it or not.
I blame it for why now everyone feels like they have to subvert expectations, because apparently they had a whole other ending in mind, but because of all the fan theories, they felt like they had to change it. And then we ended up with what we got. And I mean, no, if you're leaving good breadcrumbs and your audience figures it out, you should feel proud of yourself.
Yeah.
You know, that's some good writing. That doesn't mean take a sharp left turn and destroy everything.
With no foreshadow, nothing leading up to it. Yeah. Just a complete. Yeah.
It didn't feel earned. Yeah.
No, I didn't. I didn't have very strong feelings about it because I had stopped watching it. Oh. Like, because when it was first out, like I would watch like every week, you know, like go to my friend's house because I didn't have cable and like sit and, you know, watch it. And I was like very invested in everything. And I watched it for several years. And by the time the finale came out, like I waited a while, kind of binged the rest that I hadn't watched yet and watched it. So I think I just wasn't that invested. I was like, whatever, because I'd already lost faith in their ability to like appropriately tell a story anyway.
Right.
Once you realize that they just were throwing everything into the first season with no understanding of how it was supposed to fit together. I don't know. It's like once I realized that, I'm like, why would I trust anything you do anyway?
Yeah, no, that's totally fair. And
I love it.
I think it was extra hard because it started so strong.
Yeah, it was so enthralling, and every weird thing was like, oh my God, why is there a polar bear? I can't wait to find out why. And the answer is because we thought it looked cool.
Yeah.
And we're
The
going
answer
back
is
to
a
trying to like,
wizard did it. Yeah.
yeah, we're trying to like backfill holes now, plot holes, and it's like, you're not very good at that.
Oh man. Yeah.
Which again, I think speaks to my love for The Endless, because I did not find any of those flaws with it. And
Yes.
I am a person who definitely will obsess if there's something in a show or a movie where I'm just like, that didn't feel earned at all.
Well, I'm going to say something, and Bridget, I want you to correct me if I'm wrong, because I have not seen any of the other movies they've made. But listening to you talk about it before we were recording and now, like, there's something extra great about making a universe and having things touch each other or like build on each other and expand things more, but not be completely dependent on the history. Like, we don't have to know what the person was so that the timelines, so that the timelines line up, or that this was over here and, you know, this guy isn't going online going, well, actually, he was 2 cities away at the time. So how did that happen? You know, like, but like that just sounds so much stronger to me, that you can make these standalone movies that build on each other without being dependent on each other. Am I getting that right with this series?
Absolutely. And also, I think that they do it in such an artful way, because the connections that do exist are one of two things. They are either meaningful for the overall plot, or they just fucking rule. And like, again, Shitty Carl is my best example, because that was the part that made me do like that Leonardo DiCaprio meme. I was pointing at the TV. I'm like, look, there it is again. Like that kind of stuff. I love that. I love the little Easter egg stuff. But you know, not to beat the proverbial dead horse, but I am so tired of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, because there's way too much that I have to be aware of and consuming in order to fully understand what's happening in it anymore. Where instead, like, I feel like Benson and Moorhead just kind of sprinkle in things that will make you go, oh, or maybe make you see things from a new angle, instead of it having to be, well, you would actually understand why she said that to him if you had seen movie 3 in this totally different series you've never heard of before.
Yeah.
So
yeah, that is a good way to look at it. Yeah, that it's not dependent on that, and whether or not you catch any of the deeper stuff, it's still going to make sense.
Right. Challenge me, but make it delightful. You know, like, don't make it a slog.
Yeah. Like, when you pitch this movie, if you'd come to me and been like, look, there's this trilogy, right? I want to do movie 2. I would have been like, what the fuck? No. Why would we do that? And instead, like, it totally holds up on its own. You don't have to know the other stuff. I was picking out little things in my rewatch and writing you going, hey, is this mentioned over here? Because this seems like the thing that would pull into that, you know, or stuff like that. But it's that building and making the world more fun, like we were talking about. And as for Marvel, I literally stopped watching at Ultron, which was like 152 years ago, I believe. And for the exact same reason I quit collecting comics. Because when I was collecting comics, I wanted Spider-Man, but I didn't want to buy 7 more comics that week to make my Spider-Man story make sense. And I get the business aspect. It's a beautiful model for the people making money, but it's not something I can keep up with. So I just don't even try.
Well, see, and that, like, again, that's a cultural thing, because where I grew up, like, comic books were not a huge thing. So I didn't know about all of that. And one of my best friends loves to tell the story about me realizing Thor was an alien when we were watching the Marvel movies. I'm like, Thor is an alien?
I didn't know that.
It's kind of amazing when we're like, okay. And also, I had seen the Venture Brothers before I saw any of the Marvel movies. So when I saw Doctor Strange, I was like, oh, I understand the reference now. Okay.
That's awesome.
Yeah. That's me. Man. Like, it's just like me to bring a second movie in a trilogy to bring in, because I'm always experiencing things out of order.
No, and I think that speaks volumes about their movies as a whole, because if your second movie in a trilogy holds up completely on its own, That's amazing. Like, you can't even, I keep coming back to Star Wars for some fucking reason. I'm not even a big Star Wars fan, but like, if you just watched Empire Strikes Back, I'm sure it's a fun movie, but there's no real end and there's no, because it's part of a continuing story instead.
Right.
So it's just so, I don't know, refreshing. That's the word I'm looking for, to see that these movies can stand on their own. You don't have to watch them in order. And yet, if you want to dive in, you can get this bigger experience.
Exactly. And also, since they're time loop movies, you can always experience them out of order. It just depends on where in the loop you came in.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah.
Nice. That was very meta. Well done.
See?
I can't watch the others. I'm stuck in this one. I've already watched it twice. So there's no getting out now.
James is in a tent right now screaming at us.
Putting up a fight, so much work. I'm getting like 50 years out of this. So, because I'm just going to lay here and be like, nah. That actually brings me to one of my favorite parts. Aaron, when he talks about how he sees no difference between this loop and repeating the same shitty day in his regular life.
Mm-hmm.
I literally did I feel personally attacked. And my life is not shitty at all. Like, I'm being dramatic, but like, it's that's like, you just do the same shit every day, So like, is it really that different? And I thought that was such a fascinating thing to put in there.
Well, yeah. And I mean, that's something that's also true as you get older, when your life becomes more routine.
Yeah.
And yeah, it's, yesterday I got to have the moment where I realized it was Friday at 3 p.m.
Mm-hmm.
Because I had thought it was Tuesday up until a certain point. So
Because it all looks the same.
yeah, it's just the same day,
And I thought that was so interesting too. Like, I feel like what he was talking about there again can play into the whole organized religion thing. Like, Justin's point is that when you're out there in the life he had built for them, like, anything could happen. And, so it's not worth giving up hope. Like, yes, okay, maybe it's this way right now, but if you stay out there where you have free will, anything could happen. Things can change. But it's more comfortable to stay in a place where things are prescribed for you. You're told what to do. You're limited on how far you can go. And it's never going to change particularly much. And I don't know, again, that seems very much like a sort of organized religion thing to an extent, but with Aaron too, especially, like, Justin's whole thing about getting them out of there is he's like, well, they're control freaks. That's not right. Just like, this kind of scenario is just not right. And then he proceeds to tell Aaron everything he needs to do. And anytime Aaron argues, he gets that voice of like, no, get in the car now. I'm driving. Like, this isn't up for discussion. And I don't know, it's just kind of a continued reflection of that.
That's interesting. I like that.
And that's fascinating in itself, because what you just described is Justin having a different life, but Aaron not. Aaron is still being told what to do either fucking way. So like, that really feeds into there's no difference. But it makes me see more why Justin sees a difference.
Yeah.
Oh man. Yeah. Because that's, you're going back to your shitty hometown with the shitty religion, and nobody wants to change anything because, well, this is how it is every day. This is how it always is.
Yeah. Like, we're taken care of, we've got some beer. Everyone's, making clothes or like doing card tricks. What more could you want?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's that weird girl up the hill that cries all day, but other than that, no.
Did she ascend? I would like to know what happened to her.
I believe so. I think that she's been stuck in the loop.
Well, but she'd only been there for a few weeks, and their loop is 10 years.
Right.
So that would have been her first time being drawn into it. And also I would like to, it's like slightly off subject, but it was such a strikingly bizarre thing for him to say. Like, when Justin runs into her, like, he seems like respectful at first and like, yeah, are you okay? And then it's like, well, you seem to be the only woman here that's not claimed by multiple men. And I'm like, ew, what kind of a thing is that to say, like, at all? Like, I don't know. I don't get it. It's such an odd concept too. Like, oh, you've been claimed. What?
Yeah, that was creepy as shit.
It was very creepy. If I'm her at that point, I'm just like, no, I'm out.
One thing I want to throw in really fast before we get too far from it is, even if she didn't purposely ascend and go down to the circle with them, by the time everything's blowing up, she doesn't have room to run.
That's true.
Yeah.
And she's not in the truck.
That looks like a fucking temper tantrum too, right there.
Why does that one blow up and none of the others do? The tent doesn't blow up repeatedly.
Because they escaped and it's mad. That's my theory.
No, I'm just kidding.
I think so.
I think they did too. Bridget, let's come back to that from the beginning. Do you?
I do think that they escaped. I did not like Reddit introducing that idea into my head. I was like, oh look, they did it, yay! And then Reddit's like, but did they? And I'm like, no, I don't need to go back and think about that. I believe they escaped. But
you also probably don't require Reddit to tell you if you're an asshole or not. So
well, no, I do not.
You're fine.
Not usually, not yet. Anyway,
I'm going to do one of those. Am I the asshole? And then it's just going to be about charity work instead.
Mine's going to be about escaping a time loop. But yeah, the theory was because one of the weird sticks that they saw early on that like marked the entrance into the area where the loops occur. It's like a stick with a like doll head or something on it. Can be seen in the background, and they're like, was that a winky clue? But to me, that just read as they escaped it because they're past it now. Like you can see that in the distance, so they got beyond where the loops are occurring.
Yeah, because I felt like those were just markers. Like, so yeah. You could see them. They were leaving that behind, but of course that's where they exited. It's because one of the markers of like this, the places between bubbles.
Right.
I believe that they escaped because we have the community come up and look and then turn around and leave. So number one, the resets already happened, so they would be in a different position than they're in. And two, like if it just I totally fucking lost too. So let's go with one. Let's pretend there was one. The community looked at them and left, and so that's it.
So there it is.
I know there was
a few you really need.
They seem to believe they've escaped it. Like they feel differently. So because one of the things, it's just me making stuff up, of course, but like it felt almost like you could feel when you were in one of those bubbles. Like they seem uneasier. You've got the people that are continuously trapped, and like the expression on their faces, the way they're talking to each other, everything it feels and it looks so much lighter.
Well, that's a really good indicator too. And I feel like another part is they were continuously told by the people caught in the other loops, like, you can escape this. Yeah. Like you still have hope. And to me, that's like, it'd be one thing if it was like Cube, where it's like, yeah, you're never escaping this. If you manage to escape, you're going to get mowed down. And that was very much like, no, you have the ability to get out of this. You just have to do it right.
Right.
I know what 2 was. It was the expressions on the community's face. Like they don't look like, ha ha ha, you're stuck in here with us. And they're not doing like their usual come join the fold and be with us, which is what I think they would do. Right. Yeah. They all look like, I can't decide if they're happy they escaped or if they're sad that they're gone, but it's a different look of, I don't feel like they're stuck in it at all. That's what I'm trying to say based on those looks.
They were just like, we'll get them next time.
Yeah. Cute girls off to make more videos. No.
That was a very bittersweet, which looked, I feel like they conveyed that very well. Like, we're glad that they're like, we're sad that they're missing and they're not going to be with us now, but we're glad for their sake that they managed to escape.
And they did it together, and they're still together. So,
yeah, I loved what he said about you mess up my life, but that's what we do. I just want the chance to mess up too, and that's, I don't know. I feel like that is very universal and something that like some of us are just simply caretakers all the time, and we feel like we have to solve everything, and we feel like we have to make sure that everyone's okay. And you can get caught in that to where you're constantly trying to like correct things that haven't even happened yet. And you're not letting someone make their own mistakes. And I'm definitely guilty of that. But, I was told recently, like, it's loving to let people make their own mistakes. It's loving to let them fuck up,
As no matter how much you love someone, you can't save them. They have to want to save themselves.
Yeah. And they also have to learn. Like, like if we protect our children from every little thing, then they're not prepared when we're not here.
Exactly.
I'm always going to be hovering directly behind him, so that's not a problem for me. I'm just going to keep
There you go.
It is one of those like perspective things though, because I mean, sometimes it just sneaks up on you and you realize you haven't been letting your child zip his own jacket and he's 6 years old.
I think we realized when my daughter was like 8 that she had never opened the front door. And we had to literally like spend a week going, stop, make her open the door. You know, like it's like one of those things you just take for granted that you just, I don't know, you just do all the time, you know? So yeah, it's funny you say that because that's how I feel. Oh man. One thing I want to throw out that's in my notes before I totally forget, Chris, the drug addict, or I don't know what he is exactly, but he has, let me see my notes here. He explains that if you give in once, this being will control you forever. And I thought it was interesting how that plays into addiction. And when you're clean, there's that whole thing of if you use once, there's no once, right?
Yeah.
Like you're diving back in, and maybe it's true, maybe it's not, but it's better to not find out. And I just thought it was very fascinating that they had him say that. And I don't know if it was purposeful or not, but I thought that was really interesting symbolism that the guy who's getting clean in the moment is the one who mentions, if you let this entity get you once, you're done for forever. I don't know. That was just fascinating to me.
Yeah, I liked that. I loved how that was such an almost calm little tableau there. Like as fucked up as it was, like obviously one dude's like chained up, you know. They've obviously had to repeat this. They're together. They're two friends who are together, and they're clearly like trying to think through things. And it was, you know, it was just it was almost a little respite until old dude lights everything on fire. And
that guy's going nowhere because he's tied up.
Yep. But you notice that neither of them particularly cared. Like there was no screaming or anything. It was just like, yep.
Right. Yeah, no, it's a totally calm situation, which is eerie and creepy all in its own way.
And do you know they had been looping? Okay. Yeah, they'd been looping before that. So they must have died previously.
Oh, yeah.
Wasn't that what Carl said was so actually, then that makes me think like with the cult people, what happened when they all died the first time? How did that get set off? Did they do like a doomsday cult, like, you know, Kool-Aid drinking thing if they thought there was genuinely an ascension?
So I was wondering if we're looking at it from a point of view of this being a being that they are worshiping, that they are honoring somehow. Did he enjoy the sacrifice so much that he decided to let it happen again and again and again and again?
Maybe.
Interesting.
I do like that.
You should watch Resolution because it really covers it's focused pretty much on what's going on with Chris.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I think I was thinking it was Spring that did that, but okay, so that's Resolution. Okay.
Yeah.
I need to see that then.
Spring is the falling in love with a monster one.
Ah, as one does.
You know, just summer things.
Yeah.
Or I guess spring things.
The monster never calls me back though, and not just her feelings. Like, I guess I'm just too needy. I don't know.
Well, it's difficult to dial a phone with the claws.
That's true.
Yeah.
You know what? He probably still loves me. It's fine.
Yeah, it's fine.
Okay.
Oh my. I love it.
Yeah, I wish I don't wish the movie had covered it because I think the movie is great as it is, but I would love to know more about the being.
Yeah. Although, I mean, does that, I don't know, is that one of those things where once you answer too many questions about it or we see too much about it, it breeds contempt and the familiarity of it?
And then let me posit further. Could we have a buddy cop film with Shitty Carl in the being?
Yes. And I would watch it.
Yes.
As long as the being is Meatwad, everything will be fine.
And then, yes, Shitty Carl is Carl. So, yes.
Oh, man.
This has gone some places. Like this is,
it has.
Yeah. Yeah.
I love my favorite thing in this entire movie because this is so real to me. First off, let me say I'm an only child. I do not have brothers, but this was the most sibling thing. I've spent my life studying siblings because I don't have any. This is the most sibling thing in the world to me, that Aaron just wants respect. He just wants to hear you say that it's okay for him to do what he wants. And then he's like, fine, let's go do what you want. I just wanted to hear that. And I love that waits till the world is literally ending around them for this moment to take place. And then the actual most sibling thing is that Justin immediately violates it, and he's trying to give orders again, and then realizes what he's doing, and he backs off.
Yes.
And that whole scene is so siblings in a handful to me. Like, it's just a beautiful fucking sibling thing.
Well, and their dynamic.
I just love it. Oh,
their
absolutely.
dynamic is so wonderful. I was surprised after I saw the movie to learn that they weren't actually siblings.
Really? I would have totally guessed that they...
Same. I really would have.
Yeah, they did a good job, because you do, especially obviously their childhood was pretty fucked up. It doesn't say a whole lot about how it was before they were pulled out of a burning vehicle, but they were orphaned at an early age. And that's very common when you have things that are, when you have at least one sibling who has to grow up very quickly, there's these roles that you fall into. And I've got one brother and one sister. My brother's older, my sister's younger, and we definitely still have roles that we sort of fall into. We're older and we tend to recognize them more, and we're dicks, so we point it out. But, it is just one of those things. I loved, there was that quote that they showed at the beginning that was like, friends will tell each other the truth in the moment or something, and siblings wait for a convenient time.
Yeah.
Like, that's accurate, It's, and part of it, I don't know if it's like a respect for each other. I don't know. I have a good relationship with both my siblings, so.
Well, and I have a good relationship with my sister, but it's the same thing where it's like, this is a really stupid idea. I'm going to go along with you. Because even though I know it's a stupid idea, and I'm not going to tell you until you've also realized that it's a stupid idea.
There's something about that, just like the gene pool, like shit, and I don't know, it's like I had moved away for a while and I didn't live near either of my siblings. And they lived everywhere too. And then when we finally were together more often, all these things that I had sort of almost gaslighted myself into thinking weren't real, or that I was the only one who thought them. And I would say something like, my sister would finish my sentence. I'm like, oh, right, that did happen. Like, this is a thing. And someone else has my exact same memories, because we were all here.
Well, and it's amazing how much that comes into play the older you get. Like, even if you haven't lived close together, and my sister and I now live down the road from each other, and that was not true. I moved out of state when I was 23, and now I turned 47 this year, and I only recently moved back into the area. But that we still get each other on such a level that... And that was what I was saying earlier, where it's like, I totally know that if I was like, here, I'm about to make this really stupid decision, she'd be like, well, I'll come because I don't want anything bad to happen to you, but also because I want to see what your face looks like when you realize that this was something you should not have done. So.
Oh, man.
This is what you're missing out on, James, by not having the siblings. So.
Yeah, I think that it made up for itself. It's fine.
Yes, it all works out in the end.
Oh, man. Let's see. I don't have anything left in my notes. Do either of you?
If you were going to have any day in your life be on a continuous loop, which day would it be?
Spirited Giving, 2024, May 29th at the same... Oh, okay.
Oh, my God.
No, that's an excellent answer.
Any day ever, huh? I don't know. I've had a lot of good days. I think I would pick something where I was with all four of my kids, and so maybe I don't know. It would be a day that I was with all four of my kids, but I don't know which one.
That's a good answer. Laurel, do you have a day?
I think there are so many. But it is funny because it's like, now that I have a kid, I wouldn't choose any of the ones that didn't have him in it. So I might just go ahead and say, I don't know if I would, one of the days of our trip to Disney, because he had meltdowns at the very beginning of the first day and one at the very end of the second day, but they were just so I totally got it, And so even though those parts were a little bit rough, I feel like it gave us an opportunity to kind of illustrate how we were going to deal with our kid, and his emotions. And so like, I don't know, there was so much magic there to it, like, because he is the person that Disney's made for. Like, it was pure magic. But then also, like, I don't know, I was really, in retrospect, I was really happy with how calm I stayed when he was losing his fucking mind, and that I didn't get mad at all, and that I just sort of loved on him and held him until he like stopped screaming at me and then was like, I don't really want to go home. I was just kidding. I was like, that was a very funny joke. Let's watch some TV before.
But I mean, I was 21 my first trip to Disney World, and I think I had a meltdown the first day too. I mean, it's very
built for that.
Yeah,
it's built for, but it's something, I don't know. It was an interesting question, Bridget, because it's, normally I would be like, oh, what was like the perfect day? But it's like, no, this was also a day that I got to do something hard that I feel like I did well, and that was good for my relationship with my kid.
Yeah, I like that. Our first trip to Disney World resulted in my favorite quote from my dad that we still recite to each other, which was, "This is the happiest goddamn place on earth, and you all better start acting like it."
That's pretty great too.
That needs to be like, you need that on like a really pretty script on a fucking Christmas ornament.
Oh, absolutely.
over the mouse ears. Like,
it was fantastic.
So what about you, Bridget? You got a day?
Mine was in San Diego, actually. By whim, I was hanging out with a girl who did a lot of drinking and would do a lot of impulse buying while she was drinking. And I found a video online of people swimming with otters, and I was like, oh my God. And then she turned back to me a minute later. She's like, I bought the tickets to it. Everybody has to get a plane ticket now. And so none of us knew what we were getting into. We just knew we were going to go swim with otters. And it turned out to be a full day at an animal sanctuary, just hanging out with animals. I held hands with a kangaroo. I got to cuddle a porcupine, and it wasn't a capybara, it was more a paca. That's what it was. I loved the paca. And then it ended with us all in a pool with the otters, who would just like swim in and out of our t-shirts and deposit pebbles into our hands and cups we were holding and everything. We were so happy afterwards. We all just sat in silence in the car for the 1.5-hour drive back to where we were staying.
Wow.
But yeah,
that is a great answer.
We started measuring happiness after that on a scale of 1 to 5 otters in your shirt. Like, how happy are you? Right?
So, a follow-up question. If you had, say, bought a painting recently, how many otters of happiness would that painting bring you, Bridget?
Oh my gosh, like 20.
Could you describe said painting?
So it was posted on Facebook Marketplace, and it's a panda and a unicorn engaged in battle. They're both wounded. The unicorn is swole as hell. It's just incredible. And then after I started talking with the seller, I learned that it was a custom commission, that he gets a lot of these commissioned because it's an inside joke with him and his friends. And so there's like an entire unicorn versus panda art universe out there.
Holy
that
crap.
I'm going to have to collect them all before I die, essentially.
That somehow makes it even more amazing. I happen to be scrolling Facebook right now because my wife was writing me, so I was scrolling through while she's writing, and I saw the painting again, and I had to bring it up.
I made friends with the guy who sold it too. He's a horror guy, so
that's amazing.
Yeah. It's
Well,
unicorns versus pandas bringing us all together.
As they should. Oh man. Do either of you have anything left in your notes that we haven't covered?
It's not super profound, but I thought it was interesting the way that Justin is he's against the whole idea of the cult. And he doesn't like the whole, like, people are in control, or like, so, somebody's the leader, but he literally dives to the bottom of the fucking lake with the creepy shit in it because Hal said the answer's down there.
I mean, that's Justin, if you are listening to this, I absolutely mean this, both as a person and as the character in that film. I think I would be best friends with, for sure. Because that is also my response. I'm like, well, what do I have to lose? I've got one life. This is total tangent, but during our honeymoon, I booked a submarine trip to 1,000 feet below the surface. And I did it as a surprise. And my husband was like, I'm claustrophobic. What the hell? And I'm like, I don't give a shit. I'm doing this with or without you. And he kept saying to me as we were standing in line, he's like, this is a terrible way to die. I'm like, this is an awesome way to die. Okay, this is incredible. If I don't come back up from this, I'm fine with that. And I like that kind of approach to things where it's more important for me to know that I experienced it, saw it, figured it out, whatever, than like my own self-preservation at times.
I feel like that's me with like ghosts and religion. Like with ghosts, I am one of the biggest skeptics that I know, but there's also this huge part of me that wants to be proven wrong. Like there's this part of me that wants to experience it. And I've had weird experiences. I worked overnights in 3 different state hospitals, and I saw a ton of weird shit I cannot explain. But there's always that part of me that wants to explain everything I've seen. And there's also that part of me that just wants to be proven wrong. And I feel that way with religion. I grew up Catholic, which is why I'm not Catholic. And there's still a part of me that on some level wants to be proven wrong, but right now cannot buy into it. And so I think, I don't know that I would dive into the big lake or whatever and go to the bottom to find it, but I definitely understand the decision to do so, I think.
Yeah, I like to think of myself as an let's call it an optimistic agnostic. I don't know, but wouldn't it be cool? So
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Yeah.
I am too much of a fucking rule follower. You guys are like checking stuff like, I just need to see what happens. I'm like, no, we were instructed in subparagraph 6A that that's not appropriate. Okay, gonna stay over here.
Well, I would like to also throw in that 20-year-old me would have gone, and 20-year-old me would like answers, but 46-year-old me has kids and responsibilities, and I'm like, nah, I don't need the medical bills. I live in America.
There's this is actually funny because one of my big projects when I was in law school, when I was clerking for a personal injury firm, was to create a compendium of attractive nuisance cases, which are, where somebody gets injured because when they saw like the trampoline or the swimming pool or something, they couldn't avoid it. They're like, oh, I've got to get into that. So it should have been fenced off. There should have been a sign that said danger or something like that. And my favorite case is a man at a petting zoo who thought you could pet everything and reached into the fishing pond and tried to pet a muskie, which if you don't know what a muskie is, they have teeth. And it's a fish with teeth, and the muskie bit him. But it's like, everybody, it's a Wisconsin case. Everyone in Wisconsin is like, why the hell would you try to touch a muskie? And he's like, well, it was a petting zoo.
Seen on the it's so America, because like we're on a trip in like I think it was maybe Mexico, and it was like this sanction. It was like for insurance agents of all fucking people. We're so risk averse, and like they sent us to this like hacienda place. It was really cool. They like had these like it was this old place. It was like surrounded. It had like the horse stables like surrounding you, and they did these shows and everything. And then when you were done like with dinner, you could go like check it out. I'm a Kentucky girl. I don't fuck with horses I don't know. Mm-hmm. But one of the women I had been talking to who was like from some other, like I found her in the bathroom. She's like bleeding profusely. I was like, oh my God, what happened? She's like, well, I tried to pet one of the stallions. I was like,
oh no. And
again, it's like, because it's not America. Everyone's like, that was dumb. Sucks to be you, know, and it's like, no, they're not concerned about the liability of that there. But I felt like that was kind of sad because that is kind of an attractive nuisance.
Yeah.
Unless you have a lot of experience with horses.
Or muskie,
Yeah, or muskie. I got to look up one of these fucking fish.
I just did, and there's no way in hell I want to touch this thing. So
yeah, no, it's like also look up alligator gar, because we have those in the river
those
here.
I know.
And
yeah.
The first time I saw one of those, I was standing next to a fishing like establishment, and I said, what the heck is that? It was hanging on the wall. He's like, oh, that's an alligator gar. I said, where'd you catch that? And he pointed like directly out to the water I was standing in. He's like, well, I'm getting out of there. Yeah.
Nope,
this is why I don't go in water that's not chlorinated. I know.
Well, and even the chlorinated water I've seen, Are You Afraid of the Dark? And there could be an invisible monster in there coming after me to drown me. So no thanks.
I scuba dive at night, so I have no self-preservation. Yeah.
We took out a huge life insurance policy on Bridget going into Spirited Giving. So Still a few days for it to pay off. But good God. No, talking about touching animals you shouldn't be touching and spirited giving. When we did it at Estes Park at the Stanley, there's like wild elk just walking around outside. And the person who worked at the Stanley who helped me set everything up the most, we were walking through and she points to them and she's like, at some point this weekend, someone will get attacked by those. And I was like, what? Are they going to come over here and like run at people? She's like, no, they don't do that. But sooner or later, someone here will walk over to them and try to pet it. She's like, it happens all the time. Nobody learns. And I was just like, why are people so stupid? I'm looking at this thing from a distance. Like I shouldn't even be over here, you know?
Dude, and those like big animals like that. Yeah. Again, like they're just, I don't think people think because they look so placid. Yeah. But they're huge. Mm-hmm. They're heavy. Their hooves hurt.
You're never prepared for how big an animal. The same honeymoon as the submarine trip, I decided I wanted to swim with a dolphin, and I had never been next to a dolphin before. I mean, small town, landlocked, all of that. And I was not prepared for how big a dolphin is.
Oh, yeah.
They are huge. And then I learned that orca were much larger than I thought. And yeah.
I know. I saw, what was that? Blackfish.
Oh,
I would never fuck around with a goddamn orca. Have you seen that?
I have. And the fact that we have now bred a basically psychotic orca and released it into other aquariums.
That's on par. The fucking one though that like the scene where he keeps the poor guy who keeps trying to get out of the pool.
Yeah.
And it grabs him, pulls him down to the bottom, like to the point where he's about to drown, and then lets him go. And that went on for fucking hours.
See, and this is why there are certain animals that Danger Slater is going to now tune out of this episode. There are certain animals that I am okay with eating because I feel like it's me or them. And like also feel this way about pigs, because pigs I think are intelligent on such a level, and they know what they're doing, and they never stop growing, and they can produce 3 times a year up to 19 babies, I think it is. And
Jesus.
Yeah, so if we're not eating bacon, man, pigs, they're coming for us.
It's self-defense.
Yeah. I'm telling you that they would definitely make me into bacon if they could. So
probably. I've seen their eyes.
Mm-hmm.
Good God.
I really do hope that Justin and Aaron listen to this episode and they're like, what the hell?
It was complimentary, but then what the fuck?
Normally, this is the part where we would do movie recommendations, but you two said you wanted to do book recs and game recs, so let's do it.
Okay, so I just finished, and I won't shut up about this book. I finished Chemical Pink, and if you have not read Chemical Pink, it is probably the weirdest, wildest ride I have been on in a while. It's about female bodybuilders, and it was insane. It's fiction. If we're going to do movies as well, I can also talk about the movie that James would not let me do, which is Ink. Ink is my favorite weird movie. And for weird, I don't just mean as in content. I mean that it was produced, never got released anywhere. He threw it up on a torrent site, got a phone call 48 hours later from the New York Times that was like, how does it feel to have the most downloaded movie on? So it's a very strange movie, but he did it completely with his friends, and they made all the costumes and they did all the special effects. And I just love it for that perspective. And it is currently streaming, I believe, on Hulu. So
that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
And then you had a game rec as well, right?
Yes. And that's Oxenfree. If you like time loops and weirdness and great dialogue, you will love Oxenfree.
Fantastic. All right, Laurel, what do you got for us?
Okay, so my book rec, like I feel like I've been holding on to this forever, but if you like The Endless, you should read Agony's Lodestone by Laura Keating.
Hell yeah.
Ooh.
It's excellent. It's certainly not a repetition of the same thing, but there are just some really great family themes in there, and the creepy factor and oddness of it is so intriguing. So I highly recommend that one.
Fantastic. I will do a a movie rec that actually got brought up earlier, and that's Groundhog's Day, just because it's one of my all-time favorite movies. And I can't get enough of it. And Groundhog's Day is also the birthday of one of my children. And true story, I got in trouble with the nursing staff because I did not actually attempt this, but I asked in the middle of a blizzard if I could take the newborn baby outside and see if it sees its shadow or not.
Oh my gosh.
They did not react well. And the rest of the time we were in the hospital, I felt like people were monitoring me. So Groundhog's Day. There you go. Story of my life. Just a constant mess. All right. Where can people find you on social, buy your books, grab 4 anthologies coming out in the same week, or anything else? Bridget, let's start with you.
All right. So everything about me can be found anywhere online under BD Brave, and that's BEEDEE Brave, BRAVE. That's what I use on social media, including bdbrave.com. So you can find all of the anthologies. I like to drop it during the same week there.
All right, Laurel, what about you? Where can people find your stuff and follow you on social?
God, that's so organized, Bridget. But I'm on Twitter, Blue Sky, Instagram, TikTok, and it's generally some variation of Hightower Laurel Hightower, but I can't guarantee either one of those things. And I do have a website, laurelhightower.com, and it's woefully out of date. It tells you Crossroads is coming soon. Do I have intentions of fixing that? I don't know. We'll see.
The website is stuck in a time loop. It cannot be updated. Well, thank you both for being here and giving Don the week off to go celebrate his amazing accomplishments.
Congratulations, Don.
Appreciate it. But he will be back here next week to talk Bubba Hotep with Rebecca Cuthbert. As always, I'm James Sabata. We'll see you next week here at thenecronoma.com.